Hello and welcome to the inaugural episode of the Squared Circle News Network. I'm your host, Darren Patrick, and I want to start by saying thank you so much for clicking on this video, taking the time to give us a shot and see what you think. This is my first foray, my entrance into the YouTube wrestling community, and pro wrestling is something I'm very passionate about, something that I love to talk about, so I wanted to take a shot at joining the other podcasters. There's a lot of great ones out there. I don't want to try and take any audience from anybody. I don't have any sort of thing in mind like that. I just want to build my own brand, and this is something that I love. It's something that I'm going to stick with. So if you're here, watch the episode. If you hear something you like, if you hear something you want to discuss, if you think about what's coming up in my future episodes that you might want to listen to, please click the subscribe button, click the like button, and also click that little bell so that anytime I upload content, you'll be made aware of it. I have no idea what my schedule is going to be right now as far as putting up content, but I'm starting today. It's midweek, and I want to talk a little bit about the Fastlane PPV that just took place this past weekend. I wanted to talk about what's going on with AEW and Dynamite and their dark shows this week, and also touch briefly on the New Japan Cup, the New Japan Pro Wrestling Cup. Just to give you a little bit of a background on me, I have been a pro wrestling fan my entire life, and I am not a young man. So imagine me back in the late 1970s in grammar school, being in the library and walking past a magazine rack and seeing the wrestling magazines with pictures of Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes and Harley Race, guys like that just covered in a complete mask of blood. And you tell me what kid at that age is not going to grab that magazine and read it cover to cover. And that was, in fact, my first introduction to pro wrestling. I remember just being so wrapped up in it and trying to understand, is this real? Does this really happen? Do guys fight like this? Do they do this to each other? And I can remember being at home, and back at that time, you didn't have the massive cable and satellite channels that you have now. So my dad and I would scan through the channels on the weekend, and eventually we found delayed broadcasts, old wrestling shows from AWA, World Championship Wrestling, and just old matches. At the time, they weren't old, but looking back on them, they were really the grassroots part of professional wrestling, and seeing these guys do what they did and seeing them, they sold this so well at the time. It was complete business for them. Kayfabe was healthy and real. There was no internet, and that's what really gave pro wrestling that mystique of anybody of any intelligence level could watch it and say, and just think for a minute, is this really happening? Because they made it look so real, and that I got so wrapped up in it. So I was a fan of wrestling from that time, and really couldn't get much of those shows in syndication or however they would run on local channels, because they were territory shows. So the first real exposure I had to regular programming, weekly programming, was when the WWF started their worldwide broadcasting, and that was it. I was locked in every single show, no matter what it was, even if it was the little weekend shows where there was nothing but squash matches, did not matter. I was locked in. I was there in front of the TV. The pay-per-views, I was there right from WrestleMania 1 all the way up till, well, and here's where we get to the honest part. There came a time when I stopped with the WWE. There came a time after the Attitude Era was over, when Vince McMahon kind of knocked off WCW, and there was still good programming, went through the Attitude Era, went through the Ruthless Aggression Era, but eventually all the big superstars really just started leaving, retiring, hanging it up, and there came a time when it wasn't the same product for me. And here's the thing, I'm going to be completely honest with you guys, because if I lie to you, you're going to have no reason to ever come back and click on another video. So it's going to sound like I have a lot of negative feelings towards the WWE. And you know what? That's probably true, but it's only because I lived through the glory years, through the beginning, through the Attitude Era, through the Ruthless Aggression Era, and to see that how it's changed, how it's watered down. Now, listen, I want to preface all this by telling you that anything that I say here is 100% my opinion. I will never sit here and say, you need to stop watching this and you need to start watching this. There are a lot of first generation wrestling fans who know the WWE from what it is today and what it has been for the last decade or so. And if you love that product, if you watch it every week, if you're engrossed in it, if you're wrapped up in the storylines and the matches, I'm not going to try to change your mind. Just understand that if I say something negative, it's only because I've seen the best of this product. And with the current state of the WWE, with the big billion-dollar corporate sponsorships and things like that, it's not what it was. It's changed greatly. It's watered down a little bit, and I'm going to go much deeper into this on future episodes, but right now I just kind of want to give you an understanding of who I am, where I'm coming from, what I'm talking about. This channel is going to be mostly news oriented. I'm not going to go into detail, move by move coverage of matches and things like that, because there's so many out there that do that. I want to talk more about current important news. So as far as the Fastlane pay-per-view, again, I'm not going to get in depth into what happened, but I will say that it was a pretty underwhelming pay-per-view, with the exception of the Roman Reigns Daniel Bryan match and the Drew McIntyre Sheamus match. Two very solid matches. I will never take anything away from the good things that happen in the WWE, but the rest of the card was really pretty underwhelming. And what they're doing with the Fiend right now is they're seriously destroying this character. You know, Bray Wyatt cultivated and grew this character from the beginning with the Firefly Funhouse and then turning it into the Fiend. And he made it something that should have been a centerpiece for a very long time. And somehow, I don't know how the creative control worked with this, because I had heard different stories. I had heard that Bray Wyatt had complete control over the character, and then I heard other things. But I'm guessing that he lost control of his character, because once you had the Hell in the Cell with Seth Rollins and losing the Goldberg, it destroyed the character. And really, right now, there's no coming back from it. He's right now, with what they're doing with this ultra supernatural stuff, it's not believable. And I get the suspension of reality thing in pro wrestling. I'm totally bought into that. But there comes a time when you cross a line when it's just too much. And the Fiend right now is just way too much. It's too phony. It's too fake. It's too scripted, and it's too much like a live action horror movie that they're going to portray on Monday nights. It's really not my cup of tea, and I don't see any value in it. Again, my opinion. Please, and I want to stir up discussion. I welcome comments, and I want to hear what you have to say, but please be respectful. There's a lot of toxicity in the internet wrestling community. If you say something that somebody doesn't like about a product that they love, they come at you with some of the most vile stuff that they can think up. And this is just discussion. This is me telling you what I personally think. Again, I'm not trying to sway anybody. I'm just trying to give us something to talk about. Let's discuss. If you think I'm wrong, if you think I'm missing something, just jump in the comments and let me know. I'll talk. I'm open-minded. If you think there's something I need to see that I haven't seen, and believe me, I'm watching everything right now. I took a long break from the WWE, and once I decided to start this project, I knew that I had to put my eyes back on it and watch it regularly, because it wouldn't be fair to me to critique anything without having some kind of knowledge of what's going on. So I do watch the product, and it's not just what I'm seeing and what I'm saying. The ratings are speaking for themselves. It's just, there was a time when this was the biggest rated show on TV, and now it's fallen to a point where I never thought I would see. The bottom line is the WWE is still the big dog in the wrestling community. They have the biggest production value, the biggest roster, probably the most amount of money. I mean, Tony Khan is by no means a pauper. He's right in the ballpark of Vince McMahon, but there's so much invested in the WWE right now. It just there's so many arms that reach out from the wrestling product and go into different areas and just pull revenue in, and it all just builds this mega corporation that it would really people that say, oh, this company is trying to shut down the WWE or AEW is trying to take them down. It's not the case. It's not going to happen that way because WWE is too wealthy, it's too rich, it's too full of just so many such a roster and so many resources that you can't get rid of a company like that just by starting up a wrestling show. And I'll tell you what, I love everything that AEW is doing. They're doing things right, and they're bringing back traditional storylines. They're bringing back continuity. They're bringing back, not just having a match, having another match, and then ending it. They start a storyline, they build it over a long period of time. Let's take, for instance, the Kenny Omega John Moxley situation. I was lucky enough to be in the crowd at the very first show that AEW put on, the Double or Nothing, at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, and it was so refreshing. I felt like I was seeing a show like I have not seen in a long time. There was a time when WrestleMania was the biggest thing that there was, the biggest form of entertainment that there was, and it was a spectacle. There was, it wasn't just the wrestling; it was the atmosphere, the set, superstars from all different areas of entertainment came in to take part. Everybody wanted to be a part of WrestleMania, and everybody wanted to see WrestleMania, and it's just not like that anymore. I watch WrestleMania, and it just seems like a mildly glorified Raw or SmackDown production. It's not the same anymore. It doesn't have the same value. It doesn't have the same mystique and the same energy. But again, that's me. If you've been exposed to this product just during this current incarnation and you love this, by all means, I would never try to take that away from you. For me, it needs to change. It needs to get back to what it was. And I'm gonna, like I said, dig much deeper into this on future episodes. But I fear that right now that they're with the corporate sponsorships and all the things going on in the WWE, I don't know that they can ever get back to the level of programming that they had at one time. I just fear that where they are now is where they are, and this is the way it's going to be. There's a lot of corporate sponsorships that demand a certain amount of political correctness, and it's just you can't step on those toes when they're writing those kind of paychecks. Vince McMahon really, if Vince McMahon, and I don't think Vince McMahon does want to change the product back, I think he's completely satisfied with what he has. But if he ever did look in the mirror and say to himself, I want to go back to what I did at one point, the standard of programming that I had in the past, I think he painted himself into a corner with these sponsorships, and I don't think he can ever do that. So only time will tell. There's always the possibility that things are going to change. The reason I started this channel right now, and I've been working on this for a couple of years. It started out as strictly just me wanting to do an audio podcast and realizing that there's just the video on YouTube is really what it's all about right now. So I've been this project for me has been evolving and changing over a couple of years, and I'm finally just launching a finished product. And it's really not finished because I'm not the most tech savvy person in the world. So, you're going to see things that you're going to say, wow, that looks sloppy, or the way I'm talking, I'm still just starting. I'm nervous. I never really sat in front of a microphone, in front of a camera, and put myself out there like that. So I'll be straight up honest with you guys. There's some nerves here. There's a lot of different emotions, but the bottom line is this is something that I love, and I'm willing to make this jump, this leap of faith, and try to make this channel build something for myself. I would love if people just started clicking on this video and subscribing and liking and commenting. That'd be great. But the bottom line is, if I walk away from this, and I don't plan on walking away from this, but if I build 10 subscribers and 10 subscribers just religiously come on here and watch these videos and comment on and click on like or not like, whatever you're feeling, I'm going to keep doing this because I enjoy it. Why not? I have the time. Why wouldn't I do this? It's a passion project. But moving on with we talked about I said what I really had to say about Fastlane. I don't want to get much more into it because I really want to talk about in the future more about my feelings towards the WWE, and I don't want to come off as overly negative right now. So I'm going to move on to AEW right now. Excuse me. We're Dynamite is tonight, the next episode of Dynamite, and Kenny Omega is scheduled to wrestle Matt Sydal. If you've watched the new AEW Dark Elevation that started not this past Monday, but the Monday before that, Matt Sydal and his brother Mike Sydal had a tag team match. Kenny Omega came out and kind of squashed on his time and got in his face and challenged him to a match and said that if he could beat him, he'd give him a title shot. Well, long story short, if you did not see it, the Sydal brothers wrestled their match. Kenny Omega came out after the match and started beating down Matt Sydal and told him, the match I told you we were going to have, well, we're going to have it now. And he gave him the one V trigger and the one winged angel, pinned him and said, that's it. You're not getting your title match. And Tony Khan came out first time to see Tony Khan in this kind of a role. And I thought it was kind of cool. I like Tony Khan a lot. He seems like just a genuine, likable person. He seems like just another wrestling fan. I don't look at him and think, here's a multi-billionaire that could buy and sell me more times over than I could even imagine. He just looks like a guy that if I ran into him in a bar or in a mall, I would just sit and talk wrestling with him and not feel out of place at all. So to see him on TV with the microphone in this almost general manager type role was cool because he got loud. He got in Kenny, not in his face as they were that close, but he was on the entrance ramp and Omega was in the ring. And he told Omega that what he did was garbage, it was bull, and that he's going to have to wrestle Matt Sydal on, this next episode of Dynamite. And if Sydal wins, he gets his title shot. So we're going to see that match tonight on Dynamite. And Matt Sydal, I've always been a fan of Matt Sydal from the time that he was Evan Bourne in the WWE. I thought he was just so innovative, and he was one of those first real high-flying wrestlers that could do things that just didn't seem possible. He does that standing moonsault with the twist, and I don't get how he can pull that off. It doesn't seem physically right that he does this, but I expect this to be a good, solid match. And there's no way Kenny Omega's losing. He's on a roll right now. He's back to that cleaner character. He's back to that, that Terminator character. He's just this massive heel, and he's gaining ground and he's gaining traction. He's doing this belt collector gimmick. He's going to be wrestling Rich Swann for the Impact title soon. And again, that's a belt to belt match. There's no way Rich Swann is taking the AEW title from Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega is either going to walk away with an extra belt, or there's going to be some sort of screwed up finish where it's going to be a no contest, because there's no way Kenny Omega is losing the AEW title yet. He's got a long run ahead of him, and there's a lot of guys within AEW that are building up to earning title shots. And the first couple names that come to my mind are Hangman Adam Page. First of all, his character has come so far since AEW started. He was in the first match to contend for the world title, and he won that. He wrestled Chris Jericho for the first championship. Jericho won, of course, and Hangman kind of started playing this character where he was down on himself for the longest time, and then he won the tag team title with Kenny Omega, and his persona and his energy started to change a little bit. He was slipping in and out of that persona, and everybody thought he was turning heel. And the whole world thought that this was going to be the outcome of this, and it wound up that, of course, Kenny Omega was the one that turned on Hangman. But his name comes to mind as being one of the guys that could possibly eventually take the title off of Kenny Omega. Another one is MJF. And MJF right now is in such an important role. Such an important role. He's the leader of this new Pinnacle group. And this is so reminiscent of a Four Horsemen. And of course, with Tully Blanchard being involved, and Arn Anderson giving his blessing with the flashing the Four Horsemen sign, this clearly is what this is meant to be. It's meant to be a modern day Four Horsemen, and MJF cut that first promo when he introduced this group, and it was just absolutely perfect. For a 24-year-old guy to be so good on the microphone and in the ring, it's almost incomprehensible. It's hard to believe, but he's doing it. And I say this is such an important role because this Pinnacle group is the modern day Four Horsemen, and this is something that needs to last a long time. Factions sometimes come and go. People turn on other people and the faction dissolves, but this one needs to last. Now, I'm not so sure if what the status of the inner circle is. That was a great group for the whole entire first year plus of AEW. They started on night one of their TNT broadcast, and they've done amazing things. They've been the premier group. The only thing I wasn't liking about the inner circle was the fact that Santana and Ortiz did not have the challenges to the World Tag Team title like they should have. They are an elite team, and they should be contending for titles, and they should be winning a belt. And I know that'll happen eventually, but they've kind of been more of just a supporting role in the inner circle, so I want so much more for those guys. They're just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal talents, and I know that they've got a great future. But MJF with the Pinnacle is going to take control of this group, and he's going to be that same type of character that Ric Flair was way back in the day, and he's going to knock it out of the park. There's no question about it. There's no if as far as if MJF can pull this off. He's going to pull it off. It's just going to be how long is it going to last? They need to take this years. It's not something that can be done in a year. They need to make this last for years. MJF needs to lead this group into the future and be an integral part of AEW. Now, another thing I want to touch on is last week's episode of Dynamite, with the main event being Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa in the No Holds Barred match. Yeah, I know this is old news already, but being as how this is my first shot at this, I do want to talk about it because it was very important. Back to the honesty that I want to deliver to you guys, and back to my opinion. I'm going to share something that's probably going to be very unpopular. If I get enough views, I'm sure there's going to be comments questioning what I'm saying and taking shots at what I'm saying. Because in today's climate, it's not a popular thing to say, but I'm going to be 100% honest. I am not a fan of women's wrestling. And if you think I'm wrong, if you think I've missed something, if you think there's something I need to see, a match, a feud, or anything that I've missed out on that could change my mind, by all means, let me know. I'll find it, I'll watch it, and I'll let you know what I think about it. But what I see on a regular basis, and this isn't just AEW, I know AEW's women's division has been under fire since day one. This is AEW, this is WWE, this is Impact. WWE and Impact have women's rosters that are said to be the best in the world. And I don't know, I watch the matches and I see the same thing over and over again. I see women hitting a certain number of high spots that look really good, and then for the regular ground and pound part of the match, the holds, the headlocks, the running the ropes, the punches, the clotheslines, they just lack so much intensity. It's really what drives me nuts about the women's matches. The men go full speed in their matches, and when they hit hard. They have a very stiff style. The women, if you watch them, they run off the ropes, they run the ropes, they're heading towards their opponent, and right before they deliver that shot, they stop, kill all their momentum, and then they take the shot. And I don't get it. It drives me crazy. But what I want to touch on here is I'm going to give all the credit in the world to Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa, because they put on a spectacular show, and they put it all on the line, and they worked their asses off, and they were hitting each other. They were brutal. They were delivering. And I have nothing to complain about this match. I don't know if it would have had the same intensity if it was not a hardcore match, an unsanctioned lights out match. Would they have been able to deliver that intent? I don't know, because I haven't seen it. I'm just telling you honestly, I have not seen it. So I think this hardcore element changed things and brought something out of them that hopefully they can grasp onto and bring into all their regular matches. Hopefully this changes things for them, at least in my opinion. Thunder Rosa is talked about as one of the greatest in the world, possibly the greatest in the world, arguably. But when I watch her matches, she's got some really good stuff, some really good spots, but for the most part, it's just another women's match. And I wish I could say something different. I wish I liked it. I wish I could be on board with it. But as of right now, I'm just not. So if you can change my mind, if you can give me something to look at, something to make me think differently about this subject, I'll be happy to check out anything you recommend, something that I can look at and say, you know what, there's some value here, and this isn't what I thought it was. But I've been watching this a long time, like I said, from the beginning, and I don't shy away from the women's matches. I don't change the channel. I watch them because I watch pro wrestling, and if it's part of the show, I watch it. Yes, I might not see the whole thing because it might turn into a bathroom break, or I might run in the kitchen and get something to drink, but I still see what's going on, and it's not getting me, it's not grabbing me, and I wish it was different. I really do. I wish I could say that this was as spectacular for me as everything else, and jump right on board with it. But as of right now, I just can't do it. So let's discuss. Let me know what you think. I'm open to any suggestions. I'm open to talk. I'm open to debate. Let's take it from there. Also on AEW Dynamite this coming week, today actually, AEW is going to have the return of the Laredo Kid. He's going to be wrestling in a 6-man tag team match, joining the Lucha Bros, and they're going to be wrestling the Young Bucks and Brandon Cutler. Laredo Kid, if you guys have watched AEW long term and kept an eye on their shows, he's wrestled in AEW before, and he is right on par from what I've seen in the past with Ray Phoenix. He is just one of those insane, throw his body into anything type of wrestlers that just really is just, it's a spectacle in itself. And Phoenix is just incredible at it. I just question if he has any concern for his well-being, because when he goes over the top rope, he throws himself so hard he winds up crossing the barrier, and it looks like he's just doing so much damage to himself. But I don't know, man. I got to trust that he knows what he's doing, and I got to trust that the higher ups at AEW know what he's doing, and that they talk about it and they make sure that he's safe, because it looks like such a crazy, reckless style. And don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining about it. I love it, and I could watch Ray Phoenix wrestle every week. I just don't want to see the guy in a hospital or have his career cut short. So just throwing that out there, he's amazing, but God Almighty, be careful, man. You're gonna really wreck yourself. So Dynamite is shaping up to be a good show this week. Looking forward to the Omega Matt Sydal spot. Looking forward to what happens with Pinnacle this week. I know they have a match. The Pinnacle does. They have the FTR is teaming with one of the other members, one or two of the other members. I don't remember the exact match. I apologize, but I did just see it recently in one of my internet updates, and I was going to make note of it, but I didn't. So I apologize for that. But looking forward to that. Looking for the Omega Sydal match. Looking forward to the Bucks and seeing what Ray Phoenix and the Laredo Kid do together. And of course Penta. I'm not going to sell Penta short. He's incredible. He's just as reckless. He doesn't have quite the velocity that Phoenix and Laredo Kid have, but he's just as crazy when he gets in the ring. He does it all, and he's not afraid to put himself in danger. So it looks to be shaping up to be a great Dynamite show this week. Curiously enough, just to step back to the WWE for a quick second, Andrade finally got his release this weekend, and from what's been coming up from all different sites around the internet is he does not have a 90-day no-compete clause. So I guess conceivably Andrade could pop up on Dynamite. I don't know if that's the right move. I'm not predicting that to happen, because I think it's at a point now where AEW needs to slow down a little bit on their signings, and Andrade is one that I probably would not want to sleep on, though. I mean, no matter what I'm doing roster-wise, this guy is immensely talented, and I'm not sure, well, it's one of the things I'm going to get to in the future on the WWE, because they do this with a lot of their young roster. I'm not sure why he wasn't used more. I've seen the guy wrestle several matches, and he's phenomenal. He's got the look, he's got the skill. I guess Vince McMahon's biggest downfall on him was his English. He doesn't speak English really well, but they put him with Selena Vega, and coincidentally enough, she is also no longer with the WWE and looking for work right now. And Tony Khan did comment prior to the Revolution pay-per-view that he wasn't aware that she was available yet. Somebody pointed it out to him, and he said it was definitely something that he'd want to address when the Revolution pay-per-view was over with. So we'll see. I mean, I'd welcome Andrade and Zelina into AEW. I think that there's guys that you can let slide, maybe sign with Impact, sign with New Japan. Andrade would fit in great in New Japan, but there's guys that you can afford to let go to these other companies and maybe revisit it in the future. But AEW is still planning this second show for TNT this year, so they might have a few more roster spots that they can afford to fill. So if they can get their hands on Andrade, if Tony Khan sees fit, I'm totally okay with that. And I'm tired of hearing this place where WWE cast-offs go, because this is not the case. They've signed a handful of talents. I don't see it being as many as everybody says. And guys like Jon Moxley, who became a cornerstone right off the bat, became the world champion. This guy wasn't a cast-off. This guy's in the prime of his career, and he's ultra talented. Miro is in the prime of his career, and he is ultra talented, and he's about to go on that beast run that everybody's been waiting for and wanting to see out of him. It's not going to be a cast off. There is no cast offs. Sean Spears is now a part of Pinnacle. He's going to have a great role in this company. Christian and the Big Show. I don't look at these guys as cast offs. I look at these guys as valuable, as they are high profile people who are with the WWE, even if they don't wrestle as much as the younger guys do, because they're probably on the south side of their career. Big Show is, of course, he's already said that he's not going to have much in-ring time. Christian wants to wrestle kind of regularly, and I'm sure he can. But these guys have value outside of what they're doing in the ring. They're ambassadors. They're you can put them and have them be the faces and the voices of AEW, and you can have them work with young talent and teach them things that not a lot of other guys can teach them. I mean, AEW's got a great training staff. They've got QT Marshall, Jerry Lynn. There's no shortage of great trainers. Dustin Rhodes is involved in the Nightmare Factory. There's no shortage of great trainers in AEW, but it never hurts to have that kind of veteran experience, that many years of doing this at a very high level. The Big Show was the phenom in WCW and WWE. He was that monster, that big guy. And Christian was one of the most innovative tag teams in history with Edge. Both of these guys contributed at an ultra high level, both held championships, and both have so much to offer in so many different areas. So, until AEW signs somebody with absolutely no talent, somebody, I'm trying to think of a name off the top of my head, that would be a huge mistake. And there's a lot of talent in the WWE that's not being used. But, if they signed a Goldberg, come on, what does he have to offer? He can't really wrestle anymore. I mean, he still looks great. He might have a match or two in him, but that would be a mistake, signing Goldberg. I wouldn't be on board for that. I wouldn't be on board for signing. I would be totally against signing Brock Lesnar, even though that might be a huge ratings grab. Brock is just one of these guys that comes in when he feels like it. He gets paid whatever he wants, which I think is completely unfair. He makes so much money for working a schedule that any one of these guys on the roster would love to work that schedule, to be able to spend time with their families. And Lesnar comes in, works a few days, and makes 10, probably over 10 million. And these guys are making, if they're lucky, $1 million a year, and working an insane schedule. So, it's guys like that I would say are WWE cast-offs that you don't need that. You don't need it on your roster. You got enough talent. You got enough names that will draw attention, and this product will grow organically, because that's what wrestling does. And that's one of the downfalls of the WWE, is they stopped their organic growth, and that's why a lot of these young wrestlers are looking for their release and looking to move on, because they're not getting the opportunities that they should. They're so talented, and they're being stifled. They're being held on the bench and not put on TV, and not put on in programs that give them a chance to develop their character. It's extremely unfair. The last thing I want to talk about is New Japan Pro Wrestling, and this is kind of going to be my focus on this channel. Is, to me, the three major brands in wrestling, and that's WWE, AEW, and New Japan Pro Wrestling. And let me tell you that I'm sure most wrestling fans are at the very least aware of New Japan. If you haven't watched it with any regularity, if you haven't given it a chance to watch a bunch of matches, let me recommend that you take the time to do so. And I know there's a lot of hardcore fans that know exactly what I'm talking about, but I can tell you with, complete honesty, and without any doubt in my mind, that New Japan Pro Wrestling has the best in-ring product in pro wrestling. There is nothing better. And that's in-ring product. That's actual wrestlers. I'm not talking about promos, because they really don't do promos in New Japan Pro Wrestling. They wrestle. They have post-match scrums. Beyond that, they're some of the most talented guys you will ever see in the ring. And I think one of the reasons I like New Japan is because there is no women's division. And again, that's my personal bias, and please feel free to talk me out of it if you like. If you can try to do that, I'm all in to listen to your suggestions. But I bring up New Japan because they just had their New Japan Cup, and Will Ospreay defeated Shingo Takagi in an absolutely barn burner of a match. If you haven't seen it, if you can get access to it, New Japan has a streaming site called New Japan World, where they have their complete catalog of matches and their history and the history of their organization. I highly recommend it. It's just it's an amazing product, and if you haven't seen it, I believe you're missing out. And again, this is a matter of opinion, but I think most people will agree with me on this one. So coming up in April, Will Ospreay is going to be wrestling Kota Ibushi for the New Japan World and Intercontinental titles, and I expect this to be one of the craziest matches, one of the best matches ever, and I look forward to seeing it. And if you can at all take part in watching this, please do. Give it a shot and let me know what you think. I'm going to not cut it short. I've gone a little bit over a half hour here, but I'm going to stop here, and hopefully I said something or brought something up that got you hooked in, got you involved, got you interested or invested. And again, please be respectful. I'm happy to talk about anything, but thank you again for watching, for subscribing. If you did subscribe, if you haven't, please do. Give it a shot, because this channel is going to grow and it's going to change, and I'm going to grow and I'm going to change, and I'm going to give this my best effort and give you guys quality programming as much as I can. So thank you again for joining me for this first episode. I look forward to seeing you again in the future. Please be good to yourselves, and please be good to each other. Have a good one.